This is CBC Vancouver News.
We brought all available resources to bear to knock down this fire as fast as possible.
Wildfire on Mount Seymour. Crews have it under control, but will likely be fighting the flames through the night. Plus,
I will give you a forceful nudge to focus because the costs are now too high.
T-minus 12 hours. The clock is ticking on both sides in the port strike to either accept or reject a deal drafted by the mediator. And
my interest is so high that my payment is not covering only the interest.
Too much to handle. Another interest rate hike has some homeowners falling behind on mortgage payments with nowhere to turn. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. The North Shore is the backdrop for a wildfire that suddenly sparked up on Mount Seymour late this afternoon. The fire was first spotted around 4:15 in a conservation area. It's in a secluded gully, though, with no properties nearby that are at risk. The smoke, though, was immediately visible from around Metro Vancouver. The BC Wildfire Service says it received more than 700 calls about the blaze. Several aircraft responded immediately, with helicopters bucketing the flames with water. While the fire is contained, crews will likely be working through the night to put the flames out.
We brought all available resources to bear to knock down this fire as fast as possible. Aerial resources were dispatched to the scene, and we had over a dozen aircraft that were working the fire till 8 o'clock tonight, dumping water on the blaze.
Metro Vancouver says the fire measures 0.3 hectares in size and is not spreading. It's unclear whether the fire was human-caused. An investigation is now underway. Well, meanwhile, northern BC continues to be the epicenter of wildfire activity. 34 new fires have started burning in the past 24 hours, with 207 of them still out of control province-wide. Today saw another round of evacuation alerts and orders. The Parrot Lookout wildfire south of Burns Lake triggered more alerts, and the Bulkley-Nechaka Regional District also expanded the alert area for the growing Nilkikwa fire. And a new evacuation order was issued by the Cariboo Regional District for the Teepee Lake and Rainbow Lake areas.
We are going to continue seeing hot, dry conditions with little to no precipitation and lightning in the future. This is going to continue presenting a challenge in the response inside the Cariboo Regional District, and the situation will continue to deteriorate.
Over 2/3 of the province's more than 300 fires are burning in central and northern BC. Residents in those areas are dealing with dire conditions that have led to extreme air quality advisories. Prince George and Quesnel have both scored a 10+ on the Air Quality Health Index. It means people living there and in the surrounding areas face high health risks due to air pollution. And a little further south, Williams Lake scored an 8 on the index. A light white ash can be seen falling from the sky in those cities, covering cars and buildings. The strike at BC's ports could be coming to an end if both sides agree to a settlement drafted by the mediator. At this time yesterday, the federal labor minister asked the senior mediator to come up with a recommended deal. The two sides were handed that proposal this morning, along with a 24-hour deadline to either accept or reject it. As Mira Baines reports, the clock is now ticking with 12 hours left for both sides to respond.
A recommended deal is in the hands of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union and the BC Maritime Employers Association. It's day 12 of the strike that has paralyzed BC ports. Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan says a good deal is within reach.
But I am confident that when the members on both sides see the details of these terms of an agreement here, that they will go along with it. What I would characterize this as is a forceful nudge.
The main issues for port workers include cost of living, port automation, and outside contracting. Premiers and territorial leaders meeting in Winnipeg weighed in.
I'm really hopeful that both sides reach an agreement at the table that's going to last.
Others have been pushing for back-to-work legislation.
When we see a 12-day disruption, it's going to take I'm told 2 to 5 times as long for us to be able to not only clear that backlog, but get those chains operating back to normal.
Business and industry leaders unveiled a port calculator showing a dollar figure for how much trade has been disrupted by the strike so far, more than $8 billion. To understand the impacts of the strike, business leaders say there are about 63,000 shipping containers that are waiting to be unloaded. But by the end of the month, that number could go up to 245,000.
So this is a positive first step, but there is no guarantee that this is going to end quickly if either side opts out. And so we are calling on the federal government to do what's necessary if either side opts out and pass back to work legislation if required.
That means we are seeing a slowdown in our operations and a shutdown starting this week. This has direct impact to our employees, families, and force-dependent communities around the province.
The federal labor minister says the relationship between the two sides was starting to fray, but would not commit to back-to-work legislation.
We respect the collective bargaining process and the rights of workers, but at the same time, the Canadians need a deal.
The next step is for both parties to communicate their willingness to ratify the deal or not. The deadline is Thursday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Bank of Canada has raised its trend-setting interest rate again. The quarter-point boost puts it now at 5%. The central bank has been trying to slow the economy in an effort to bring down inflation, but the economy has been more resilient than expected. The bank says strong consumer demand and a strong labor market continue to drive inflation. The next rate announcement is September 6th. Today's rise is the 10th increase by the Bank of Canada since March of last year. And as Joel Ballard reports, some homeowners are struggling to keep up with the mounting mortgage payments.
A year and a half ago, Lena Chandy switched to a variable mortgage on her townhome. It was only supposed to be for a short time, so she could remortgage for a renovation.
All of a sudden, boom, the first increase happened. And I was like, okay, well, whatever, that's fine, I can handle it. And then the second increase happened, and then the third increase happened, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and now my mortgage payment is doubled.
The single mother of three pays an extra $1,000 every month.
We've just had to make sacrifices, all of us.
Gone are the vacations, eating out is limited, a common theme among many British Columbians, especially homeowners with variable mortgages.
I'm already not paying my principal, and my interest is so high that my payment is not covering only the interest.
And there's concern that the high interest rates will make it even harder to get into a housing market where prices are already out of reach.
To me, it does not seem feasible that at least in the next 15 to 20 years I will be able to own my own home.
Not with parental help.
Not without my parents.
Which is going to extend our ability to retire younger.
In terms of housing, experts say the hikes did initially have a cooling effect, but the market picked back up with the past two rate freezes.
There was a little bit of stability, and right away the buyers feel like now this normalizing, we should get into it.
Meanwhile, for this family of five, mortgage payments have risen by $800.
Well, it's hard for everyone around me that I know, and for our family for sure. We're not eating out as much compared to before, and we just have to keep every penny accountable.
The Credit Counseling Society says it has seen an increase in clients struggling under rising mortgages, but adds that there is a way to tackle mounting debt.
Starting with a budget, look at where you spend your money on it in a given month.
Then compared with how much money you have coming in and set a goal.
Is the end goal to, maintain the lifestyle that they have? Okay, that's great. Let's see what we're working with right now. Is the end goal to start paying off debt within the situation that we have? Okay, if that's the case, let's look at the situation, see what's actually available to you.
Back in Surrey, Chandy says she plans to ride out the variable mortgage, hopeful that this increase will be the last. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Coquitlam.
To Vancouver Island now, and starting Monday, slope stabilization work will begin on Highway 4 at Cameron Lake Bluffs, which was affected by wildfire last month. The highway will be closed from 9 to 5 Monday to Friday until mid-August, with a 2-hour window for vehicles to pass midday. The province says the highway must be clear to keep crews and travelers safe from falling rocks. There will be no closures on weekends, including the BC Day-long weekend. However, truck drivers and the tourism industry say it's a major blow.
It varies, but we're 45 to 50 trucks at least a day, and then the supplies coming in, and I know the cedar chips that are used at the Crofton mill, that's dependent on that, and so there's a lot of integral pieces moving here.
The tourism sector, we know, will have a hit from this. People hopefully will change their plans rather than canceling their plans. That's certainly what we're optimistic for.
Tofino and Ucluelet saw a $44 million hit during the 3-week highway closure. Tourism operators have asked BC's Transportation Minister to extend that 2-hour daily window to 4 hours to allow more tourists through. The highway will be open to alternating traffic between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. In the Okanagan, construction crews throughout Kelowna stopped working and sounded their horns this morning, marking the 2nd anniversary of a catastrophic crane collapse. Families of the 5 victims wept alongside construction and trade workers during a moment of silence. The crane was being dismantled when it came crashing down. Plans now for a permanent memorial were unveiled and will include dedicated areas for each of the 5 men.
This is just one way we can honor those who lost their lives the morning of July 12th, 2021, while also promoting awareness and education around safety in the workplace.
The 2-year anniversary also marks a deadline for civil lawsuits related to the accident. Multiple investigations are still underway. It's described as one of the worst workplace incidents in BC's history. Well, still in the Okanagan, federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre swung through the Okanagan today, talking with supporters and addressing the port strike and the Bank of Canada rate hike. He also aimed to set the record straight after drawing criticism by suggesting parts of the Okanagan looked like a third world country. In May, Poilievre tweeted a video showing a homeless encampment, writing, "This is Kelowna," after 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP. It's his first official trip there since becoming leader. After a multi-year pause due to the pandemic, the Gastown Grand Prix returned today. The cycling race marked a special anniversary, 50 years since the first race in 1973. And a BC boy made this race one to remember.
Riley Pickrell's coming through. Riley Pickrell, can he get it done? Riley Pickrell takes the win.
Several Olympians, national champions, and locals competed, including former Gastown Youth Race winner and current Grand Prix men's champion Riley Pickrell of Victoria, as he saw cross the finish line there tonight. Kendall Ryan of the U.S. finished in the top spot for the women, claiming her record-setting 4th win. Well, the Vancouver Folk Festival is back this weekend at Jericho Beach after getting cancelled and then saved again. There was an outpouring of support and funding that kept the festival going.
And the community gives us strength. The support of government gives us strength. And we're working on developing those relationships, bringing in sponsors.
The 46th edition of the festival will be smaller than previous years with fewer stages and artists. Still, more than 40 musicians from around the world will be hitting the stage. Still to come, forced to move rooms or leave moments before undergoing medical assistance in dying. More on a BC healthcare operator's controversial MAID policy. That's next. Stay with us. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. This year is supposed to be a big post-COVID return for blockbuster movies, but it's been a bumpy ride. Many titles have underperformed in ticket sales, creating a worrying trend for Hollywood. Jackson Weaver looks at what causes a movie to fail and whether that'll change what we see on the big screen.
Action star Tom Cruise has an optimistic catchphrase.
See the movie!
But as his 7th Mission Impossible film launches, just ahead of heavyweights Barbie and Oppenheimer, there's a worrying trend.
Can we talk about what's going on with the box office right now?
Here's a taste. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny will likely earn its studio less than half its cost.
I'm an idiot.
Shazam! Fury of the Gods' failure prompted star Zachary Levi to beg fans to go see it.
Go see Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
And The Flash is being called the biggest superhero flop of all time.
Just the amount of consecutive kind of disappointments that are coming out from these major movies with these very inflated budgets, I think that's what's making it so jarring.
I want to be where the people are.
But inflated expectations could be what's, for example, pushing Disney toward its worst non-COVID year in nearly a decade.
It will be the first year that they don't have a $1 billion movie at the box office, most likely. And it's kind of astounding to think that $1 billion has become, is it a success or is it a flop?
He was born into the world of the rich and powerful.
Historically, though, flops have had one obvious silver lining, telling studios what audiences don't want. Take the infamous Heaven's Gate.
That's the white whale of all flops.
The 1980 bomb essentially ended the era of big-budget art films, setting us up for the popcorn fare we have now.
Comment down below the name of a big flop.
But this flop historian says, with the rise of streaming services, a movie tanking at the box office means less, and that's on purpose.
If a studio has a choice, they're not going to set up a second paradigm where they have to constantly announce that these plans backfire or these embarrassing flops.
So if you were hoping your ticket purchases might discourage more superheroes and remakes, the studios may not be listening. Jackson Weaver, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. BC's health minister says he's working with one of Vancouver's largest hospitals amid reports it denied a terminally ill patient access to medical assistance in dying or MAID for religious reasons. Adrian Dix addressed reports that St. Paul's Hospital decided to transfer the woman to palliative care in her final hours, saying care in general has to be patient-centered and that the patient's wishes come first. St. Paul's is overseen by Providence Healthcare, which is a Catholic nonprofit organization. It does not allow MAID in its facilities due to the church's beliefs around death by suicide and euthanasia. Well, a BC doctor said she quit her job at Vancouver Hospice Mays Place because it was taken over by Providence Healthcare. Arlene Young spoke with palliative care doctor and MAID practitioner Dr. Jyoti Raman earlier today.
So you quit in February. So why did you decide that this was the best course of action after Providence Healthcare took over at Mays Place?
So I had been witnessing a lot of forced transfers from Providence, from St. Paul's, Mount St. Joseph. That had been part of my, unfortunately, my practice. And then I expected that the existing facilities, which were faith-based, would continue until something big happened to change it. What I did not expect that other facilities which permitted MAID would now be handed over. And that's what happened. Mays Place used to permit MAID, but when it was taken over by Providence, it would no longer do it, which meant patients under my care would have to be transferred. That was not acceptable to me.
Right, and so, you know, this policy as it was being played out, what did you see happen?
So initially what we did, or at least what I did, was I tried talking to the Vancouver Coastal Health leadership, just trying to say, maybe you don't know what forced transfers look like, but I've seen them, and it's not a great way to go. So one of the things that is suggested as a solution is to provide what's called a workaround room, which was created in St. John Hospice, and they said, we can do the same thing at Mays. So in that supportive housing building, we can create a room and the MAID patient can be transferred there. This was not an acceptable solution to me.
Why didn't you think that it was an acceptable solution to have this other room there?
Because what I've witnessed is, for instance, in St. John Hospice, it's a beautiful hospice, lots of quiet rooms, and my patient, let's say she's in her mid-80s, advanced breast cancer, she's approaching end of life. But the hospice care, though excellent, is not enough for her. She's suffering too much, and she says, please, Dr. Jyoti, I want to die now. So when we go there, this woman, old elderly woman in great pain, who's already dying, now we have to take her bed and physically move that bed through the doors, through this corridor, into this strange room somewhere else, just so that she can have MAID. And none of the hospice staff were allowed to touch it. They're not allowed to help, that's the rule. And in fact, we were told that I was not allowed to park in the parking lot if I was coming as a MAID provider. These were written instructions. So there was something so undignified, and also I felt that her dignity and her last few minutes were really damaged by that process of, it took about 10 minutes to maneuver that big bed in through this door. Is that how you want to see your loved one die? She could have died peacefully in her room. So for me, the workaround room is not an option.
What is the change that you want to see happen now?
I would like, there is something called the BC MAID policy, which was implemented in 2018, which laid down guidelines on where MAID had to be provided in all publicly funded places, which is any facility which receives more than 50% of funding from the government has to provide MAID. This was the ruling, except for faith-based facilities. And so I would like that exception to be removed, because I do believe that this is about suffering. It's not, for me personally, I'm a palliative care doctor, this is about suffering. People are suffering intolerably to be eligible for MAID. That's the eligibility criteria, intolerable suffering. How can we justify increasing their suffering? To me, it's actually a no-brainer.
This is a live shot of Harbour Centre downtown. The volatile weather has calmed down somewhat, and a bit of much-needed rain, but was it enough to help with the wildfires? We'll find out with the 5-day forecast next.
For more than 20 years, visitors to Vancouver's aquarium could expect a good killer whale show, flip-flops, fin flapping, fluke flutters, phonetics, 4 times a day. But now there's a new attitude at the aquarium.
The killer whales are now like all the other animals in the aquarium, like the beluga whales, like the seals, like the sea otters, like the fish, like the octopus, in that people come and they just enjoy them.
That means no more scheduled performances. Some folks feel let down.
Well, it's a little disappointing. Yeah, my kids are looking forward to seeing them, but we've seen them a lot. We've been members for a long time.
We were sort of expecting a show of tricks and things that the whales do.
So you're disappointed?
Disappointed, the kids are.
That's something that we find is critical for the animals here, is change and challenge.
The whale guide explains that Biasa, the female orca, is pregnant, and that the aquarium wants to create a stimulating, natural environment for the whales and not force them to perform on cue. More than a few people appear a little subdued.
Our greatest problem here is to rework the public expectation and try to encourage people to not think of the whales as something that should perform for them, but something that they should enjoy in and of itself.
Now that sounds very good, particularly at a time when many people are questioning whether whales should be in aquariums in the first place. Payne's not saying this policy is a response to the criticism, but it must be difficult to explain the new policy to the whales, because suddenly it's 2 o'clock, a time when the whales used to put on a performance. From years of experience, they know that showtime means mealtime. So out come the trainers.
Well, you just said that you came here for a performance and you didn't think you were going to get one, and
we did. I think that constitutes a performance, although it wasn't, how can I explain it? It wasn't like going through hoops and stuff like that. It was more natural.
Well, maybe it just shows that you can't make an old whale forget old tricks, or that you can take some of the wilderness out of a whale but it's pretty hard to put the wilderness back in. For the CBC Evening News, I'm Bob Nixon in Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is the premier media partner of the 2023 Surrey Fusion Festival, July 22nd and 23rd. Visit the festive cultural pavilions, enjoy free live music and family activities, and make sure you drop by the CBC tent for your chance to win CBC swag. And the Herb Original is a new CBC British Columbia podcast. Stream it today on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Darius Madavi joins us now for a look at the forecast. And Darius, looks like some good news, that fire danger rating coming down a bit today.
Hi, Tanya. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can see that we're looking a lot less orange and red than we have been the last few days when we took a look at this map. Still some red and orange in the central parts of the province. That hasn't come down yet. Not great news because that's where we have seen a lot of our new fire starts. But you can see that in the southeast and northeast parts of the province, where we've also seen a lot of high fire danger, that has come down. And that's because those thunder showers that we were worried about, they did bring rain with them. It was not dry lightning, which means that a lot of that moisture got into the soil, bringing our fire risk down at long last. And that's good news, especially because you can see earlier today, a lot of the lightning strikes we did see, remember our risk was coming down, but still present, were in those parts where the fire danger is now lower than it has been the last few days. So that was a really fortunate break that we've had, and no lightning where the fire danger is particularly high. So hopefully no new fire starts coming ahead. And we can hope that as some new moisture rolls in at the start of next week, that fire danger will keep coming down. That is what the government forecasts are expecting. So really good news there on the fire front. But we do have to make it through the weekend first. You can see that tomorrow we are expecting still some lightning risk for the easternmost parts of the province. Again, that risk is down compared to the last few days, but still present. But we can hope that we'll just see the showers with no lightning, so we don't have to worry about any new lightning starts, but that fire danger will remain decreased from how we've seen it. But in the western parts of the province, nothing but sun, even sunnier than today has been. And if we look at Vancouver, this is actually pretty much what we'll see for the entire western part of the province, closer to seasonal for today and tomorrow. And then over the weekend, we see those temperatures start to climb up above seasonal before coming back down, chance of showers at the start of next week.
Won't complain about those showers, certainly this time of year. Thanks so much, Darius. Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
A local tattoo artist is paying tribute to his hometown of Maple Ridge with a song. Alex Rousey expected some haters when he posted the song online, but was pleasantly surprised by the appreciation.
At first, the Maple Ridge song was a huge kind of joke. And then, you know what? I was like, let me make it better. Let me take out the swearing. I'll make it for everybody and try to hit all the bases. So then I just kept going in and making it better and better, right? It's still kind of funny. It's still comedic, right? And so I just, you know what? When you commit to something, you go in 100%. It's crazy what can happen.
Rousey believes his authenticity is the reason so many love it. The song references many things that Maple Ridge residents would relate to. Here's a little snippet of it.
Little shop, whatever's in your cup, when you get to Maple Ridge, just hit me up. It's Maple Ridge till I die. I'ma get that tattooed on my thigh. Floating down Alouette River, not stop. Hit the rocks and I lost my flip-flops.
And yes, he really did get that tattoo. Rousey wrote the anthem last fall, but waited until summer to put it out. He's hoping it becomes the song of summer 2023. That is your late news for this Wednesday. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1 starting tomorrow morning at 5:30. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.